she's going to have to get up there and convince the judge that she's really taking responsibility, is she not, for the judge to accept a plea from her if she goes through with this on Monday?
Absolutely. Casey is going to have to either admit her guilt or enter a no contest plea, and she is going to have to admit the factual basis that underpins the charges against her. So it will be the moment of truth where she has to own up to her responsibility to these charges.
Now here's a girl who's lied, who's blamed other people, who's sidestepped, responsibility for things and made up stories that, many of us would be hard-pressed to make up. Do you think, is it difficult for clients to do that, even if they're sincere and even if they don't have the track record she has? And what do you think, and how do you extrapolate that into what she's going to do, knowing from her track record what we know of her?
In a number of cases, it's very hard for a person to have to stand up and admit their responsibility, look themselves in the mirror, if you will, and admit their wrongdoing. That's hard under the best of circumstances, and for a person like Casey Anthony, from what we know about, it's going to be doubly hard for her to face that moment of truth and look at herself in the mirror, admit her wrongdoing.
And she has to be convincing, is that right? I mean, the judge has to believe that she's truly taking responsibility.
If she hopes to have a favorable sentence from the bench, including withholding of adjudication of guilt, this judge is going to have to believe that she is sincere in her admission and that she is sincere in her rehabilitation on these charges.
What kind of rehabilitation can there be when she's in jail?
Well, she's made restitution, and if she stands up and assumes responsibility for her acts, the law regards those as steps toward rehabilitation, and that's what a court looks for in a first-time offense of this nature.
Okay, so she's going to have to get up there and be convincing and own up to it. I mean, in a nutshell, tell me what she's going to have to do on Monday if she goes through with this.
She's going to have to stand up, she's going to have to admit her guilt, and she's going to have to admit the underlying basis of the criminal conduct, own it, take responsibility for it without equivocation.
And then, okay, so now, one of the new motions that was filed just yesterday by the defense are continuing to try to pin the murder on Roy Kronk, and the basis for their accusation is that one of his ex-wives claims that he used duct tape to bind her on more than one occasion, and they're trying to make that correlation, I guess, between, she says he would have killed her if he got the chance, which obviously he would have had a million chances, but at any rate, she's saying that, so they're sort of tying these accusations of possible tendencies toward possible murder or violence, plus the duct tape, and trying to make that correlation. What do you think of their argument that because one of his ex-wives says that he bound her with duct tape, they're trying to make the correlation between that incident and the situation with Kaylee having duct tape over her mouth? What do you make of that argument? In order to use that type of evidence in court, we call it reverse Williams rule evidence. Well, before you go into that, I'm not sort of looking for the legal thing. Okay. What do you think of the merits of an argument that if he used duct tape on his ex-wife years ago, is accused of it, we don't even know if it happened, that they're trying to make this correlation between that and Kaylee's layers of duct tape over her mouth? What do you make of that, even that correlation they're trying to make? That's a very thin correlation, especially when you examine the remoteness of the time frame that this was supposed to occur, the manner in which the duct tape was supposedly to be employed, and couple that with a lot of speculation as to what Roy Kronk is capable of. It's a very tenuous argument that it has some evidentiary value.